sales office. How can I help you?
Yes, I was given this number and I was told to talk with Lisa. I'm pronouncing her name Udlan.
And you were provided this phone number by whom?
A news media outlet.
Okay, and are you with the media?
No, I am not. I'm actually an Oregon consumer who is disabled and is Native American, and I've submitted several complaints that I get told from the consumer hotline that the manager would call me back, and it's been like 2 months. I've submitted complaints on the online. I submitted complaints for the American Disability Access to court records. An arbitrator failed to notify me on court. The collection company ended up getting a judgment. The collection company is collecting data from called a data pool system from the credit bureaus. And Oregon doesn't have a law against it. We submitted documentation to the FTC, the Consumer Protection Credit Bureau, the FBI, the Clearinghouse. Once we found out about it when we were living in Utah, so we were forced to move from Utah back to Oregon, where my wife and I spent 3 years of fighting this to get it out of our house because we were sleeping in a chair and a couch in a less than a 400 square foot apartment with my disabled kid and cats and myself because I am mobility issues. And I call and complain and send records, and this collection attorney has just been, well, I got the information. The information is fraudulent. They got it from my checking account. They were automatically deducted from my account without my approval. My bank only gave me back $2,000 out of the $4,000 that they took. And so far, this debt has costed me a lot of money, and my identity is getting cross-referenced with the registered sex offender. So I'm getting no help at all. I know that's a mouthful, right?
You called the news media for what reason?
Well, I was just curious of what this debt pooling act is doing, and they're seeing an increase of these debt collectors collecting from this debt pool, and this debt collector is JHONSONMARKS LLC, who has lots of complaints, and from the Consumer Protection Credit Bureau by following judgments without properly serving the clients. Like Oregon law requires them to serve me. They served a subpoena to my neighbor's kid who's 8 years old. That's the only reason I found out about this debt. They're using deceitful acts of serving these clients. I want to say clients because or victims. I don't really know the circumstances with ours. We have all of ours documented. We submitted complaints to the Attorney General's office, like a lot of them, like very much so a lot.
Okay, so you submitted your complaints related to JHONSONMARKS debt collection to our consumer protection section, and you were told that a manager would call you back, but they did not. And then subsequently, the debt collection effort is continued.
Right, because the date that because I see the state bar is looking into this complaint because they asked him how did he get the information. And his response is he got the information, but the state bar won't release what he gave me, how he got the information, because it's an ongoing complaint. So I contacted the state bar, and they requested how he got it. He won't tell them how he got it. The judge carried this over for another 2 months, and this debt collector said, like in my original complaint to the state bar, when we found out about it, they asked me for $545 to bring this account current. And we didn't even know anything about it. We went down to Layton, Utah, and we made a police report, and we've got that, sent it off. I mean, we followed the FTC's advice. Like, you submit the documents to the clearinghouse, to the credit bureaus. I asked Senator Ron Wyden's office to step in, and he sent them a letter saying, please update the credit bureaus. We had to pay pretty close to $58,000 down to get into our house here.
And do you have an attorney?
No, I'm trying to get one because of the identity issue of being registered with a sex offender. No one's there's a third party debt resource who's using our information. So when an attorney types in my name, it comes back registered sex offender, and I've been trying to clear it up from all these third party collection sites, and no one's listening to me without a court order. So I'm asking every time this is the second time that this debt collector has sold this debt. The first one was like, I'm not touching it, and they sell it back into his pool.
And what was the last messaging that you got from our consumer protection section before the manager would call?
The last response was, we sent the information to JHONSON and the following information was sent. If Mr. Pearsall is dissatisfied, please show documents. We never received it. Documents was shown. I showed them that they received it. And then they said, well, we already had court, so the judge found a judgment in my favor. There's several things going wrong. The court arbitrator should have never allowed this to continue, knowing that we're victims of identity fraud with submitted documents. And being disabled, they failed to give us the video link, or contact us back about court. He never did. So.
And did you make a complaint to the court administrator specific to the court complaint?
Yes, to Chris Wayfield, and his message was, the first message was, we are sorry, there was a miscommunication, and his new one's like, there was never a miscommunication. I screenshotted his original email and their original response. I said, I'm confused, please have the ADA coordinator contact me back. And the judge in Benton County was like, they're asking for immediate judgment because they followed the law. They didn't follow the law. You can't collect on a fraudulent debt unless the court is saying that you can collect on fraudulent debts. My account was compromised.
Okay, so let me explain a couple of things to add some clarification. Maybe you already are aware of this information and you know it doesn't apply, or maybe no one's told you, but right now you're calling the Attorney General's office, and the role of the Attorney General, which is a section of the Department of Justice, is to provide legal counsel for state agencies, boards, and commissions. So we do help to create law, but there are still limits as to what we can do for individual constituents. For instance, we're prohibited from providing any legal advice. So we can't provide you a process for remedy related to any of these complaints, changing the law, the mistreatment by the court, the actions of the debt collecting attorney. We don't have enforcement power over any of these instances.
Right, but it's called a debt pool law. Like, Oregon doesn't have one, and the news channel has seen an increase of these cases being called, and they're like, well, if you can get the Attorney General to respond from email saying what they're doing with the third-party debt collection law, because I don't understand how people have our data. When you're a victim of fraud, there's a disconnect between these agencies, the credit bureaus, the secondary credit bureaus, the data collection pools. There's a disconnect, and
right, but while that may be true, the information that the media provided for you is incorrect. So your testimony is valuable related to the damages of that system.
Right.
However, you calling our office isn't going to change the law. Have you spoken with your local representative, your state representative, or did you say that you don't live in Oregon any longer?
No, I live in Oregon. I just wanted the manager of this consumer person to call me because they said that the Attorney General is aware of this JHONSONMARKS and has evidence of what you guys slapped them on the hand, gave them a fine, told them not to do it again, and what they're doing it again.
Right, but we've already heard your complaint related to that, and we're already considering your complaint related to this particular attorney and his practices. There's also, as you described it, an ongoing bar investigation. So there isn't any more we can do. We can't, and we don't have power over that attorney. And so while you might want to hear what the Attorney General is doing, that's a courtesy, right? It's not specific to the collection practices or your specific
right. I'm just trying to, the judge is like, well, you can serve them notice and have them appear, and the debt collector was like, that's a waste of the Attorney General's time. And I'm like, no, Your Honor, I'm asking these to get this addressed because as an Oregon consumer, since I've been born in Oregon and only left Oregon for a couple of years, I don't understand how these debt party systems are collecting on the information. And then we asked.
You did make us aware by way of your complaint. So you have already accomplished what you're telling me you want to accomplish.
Right, but they already took like $2,000 of my money. They want to take $2,000 more, and they're using fraudulent information from another debt collector.
But that's a matter for you to discuss with the court.
Right, the court said they can't discuss this with me without the Attorney General, based on the information. I'm asking for records from the Attorney General's office, what they've done to, like if they slapped them on the wrist, what do they have? I get told a manager will have to discuss that with you. A manager's not sending me the information I requested. I sent a media request form asking for the information because the arbitrator's like, if I had that information in the beginning, this wouldn't even continue, but I never got it.
Okay, but how did you make that request? Through consumer protection or through a records request?
I made it through the records request and the consumer protection.
And did you receive a response specific to your records request?
The response was, I had to pay for it, and I said, well, I'm disabled, here's my circumstances, can you please advise? And they said the manager would have to call me back. That's the thing, the managers are not calling me back when the consumer protection...
I would be surprised if your letter said that. Your letter probably describes the limitations of providing that information or demanding a payment.
No, I got the records request. I got it on an email. I mean, I keep all documentation.
Right, but it's not standard procedure for us to promise a callback from a manager specific to your records request.
No, the records request said I had to pay for it or get a waiver and have the manager call me back.
So you're welcome to pay for those records. That's the formal procedure for requesting records.
Right, and it says, Dear Mr. Pearsall, we have to have a manager contact you back about this matter. We do understand about your financial situation and a pending court matter, and it appears that the request could be easily made if the manager would override this. We would like a documentation that your disability. I sent them the proof of my income. Please advise us. We'll give you 10 days notice prior to making our decision for a manager to call you back. It's been like 60 days.
And who sent that letter? Who signed it?
Records request. That's all it said.
Okay, can you please tell me how to spell your last name?
Pearsall. Now, if I had like $10,000 for an attorney and I was cute with like my teeth, because my teeth was knocked out by getting accused of being a sex offender. So when I smile, I look like a hillbilly. I wear sweats because of my back, so I look like a homeless person. So if I look pretty like a Native American should, or somebody who is cute, the response from the community would be much better than get a job, lazy bum, you're trying to be disabled. I'm not trying to be disabled. I never once said, yeah, I can't wait to be disabled.
Okay, can you tell me how to spell your last name one more time?
It's Pearsall.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold for a moment, please, okay? Okay. I'm going to pass along your message as a follow-up to your complaint, but I do want to clarify a couple of things, okay? Or reiterate, let's say. While you're welcome to pay for your records request, but requesting those records from our consumer protection section is not a formal records request. If you Google or search, however you want to do that, the Oregon Department of Justice Public Records Request, there is an official form. That is the formal method for requesting records. Okay, so it doesn't sound like you've completed that form. I don't know where you sent your records request, but that is the formal process. And if no one's told you that before, I'm describing that for you now.
Okay.
Okay? But specific to your other complaints, we don't have jurisdiction. So while they may have said, we'll get back to you, and they may still, I don't know. That is a courtesy. We don't have enforcement over these matters. So your complaint has been heard. Your complaint is being considered within the scope of complaints specific to that debt collector. And if you would like to see a change to the law, that's a matter you can take to your state representative.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's good. So you can't do anything to protect the Oregon consumer. It's not. You don't have laws that just over debt collection, data collection, fraudulent activities. Is that what you're? Is that what I'm understanding?
I didn't say that. What I said is your complaint is being considered within the scope of this complaint specific to that debt collector. And your testimony is valuable, and you've submitted that, you've made that information available. And so I imagine that that is also falls within the considerations and priorities of what we're able to do to continue to adapt consumer protection matters to current day practices.
But you
I
don't.
can't promise that the law is going to change today because you made a call to our office.
Well, I'm not expecting the call to be like today. Like, here you go, Renee. Here's a letter. But I just don't understand that if this debt collectors are collecting data and you know about it and you've done nothing about it, what are you?
You don't know that we've done nothing about it.
Well,
Just because
obviously,
we haven't communicated that to you
obviously,
doesn't mean that we
Oregon,
haven't done anything about
the debt pool system is coming from our data being used. Our data is being used through third-party servicers and collecting.
And there's a new privacy bill that just passed. Have you read that bill?
No, I'm trying to get them to honor this bill, and according to the court, the bill it's not into law.
Correct.
So
it has passed, and that was an AG priority. So whether that affects your current case and makes changes, I can't say, right? That's not
Right.
for me to decide.
well, I just don't understand
that
like
does
this.
show effort. So that does address your request to change law. That it may not be retroactive. That's a matter for you to address with the courts. And you're welcome, of course, to speak with your own attorney, but we can't provide retroactive options, and we can't intervene in the practices and decisions of the courts.
So if I serve them a subpoena asking the information,
I can't answer your question about the courts and their practices and what you can do to.
no, not the court practices, because I want the attorney general on these complaints.
Okay, you are welcome to speak with your own attorney to understand how you best can proceed and what your legal opportunities are. But we are prohibited from providing legal advice. And what I described is that we don't have jurisdiction over these instances and these practices.
So
and this is an ongoing Oregon State Bar investigation. So if I was you, I would see how this is completed.
Okay, well, thank you. At least that's
You're
a little
welcome.
bit more clarity, and then waiting for 2 months for somebody who's disabled waiting for your call. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.